Hello and welcome to my Films of the Year posts. Hopefully you've watched my countdown of best films of the year 10 to 6, and now we take a little break from that countdown to, well, count down something else, which is my worst 5 films of the year. So yeah, I wasn't planning on doing a worst 5 films of the year, but I've been to cinema like 85 times, something like that this year. So I've avoided some films that just look terrible. So in this list, this is obviously a list of the worst 5 films that I've seen this year at the cinema. Obviously there's things like Movie 43 and stuff that just look truly atrocious that I would avoid. I'm sure it would be in my list if I'd seen it, but I'm not going to sit through something that terrible just so I can talk about it. So yeah, I won't talk about these in as much detail as I will with my top 10 because they're not worth anyone's time, to be honest. Yeah, so my I will say the first 3 then I will do in one big chunk. So I don't want to put the post up, whatever. One big chunk then. They're all comedies. They're all pretty terrible. So in 5th place then is This Is 40. This Is 40 then is mildly amusing in a couple of places, I would say. It has Paul Rudd and Leslie Mann as a married couple. They're 40, or they're turning 40. Their children are played by the Apatow children, and they're pretty good in it, to be honest. They're fine. But it's a big comedy from the Judd Apatow kind of stable, and we've seen that they can be really funny with this year, with Anchorman 2, but this film just felt really just not funny, to be honest. It's kind of rich people problems. He's kind of some indie record label, and you know they might have to move to a slightly smaller house type thing. So it's not really very relatable, and yeah, I just found it very unfunny. Megan Fox looks pretty hot in it, but that's probably the best thing I can say about it. Is that shallow? Probably. Anyway, so moving on from that, then we get my number 4 film, which is what should I go for? Hangover 3. So The Hangover 3 means that Bradley Cooper gets a position in my top 10 and my bottom 5, without ruining what film he may be in my top 10. Yeah, so The Hangover. The first Hangover was pretty funny when it came out. Was that like 2009 or something? That was pretty funny. I don't know if it still stands up because I haven't seen it in a while. Hangover 2 was terrible. It was kind of racist and just horrible, horrible film. Hangover 3 isn't much better, really. It's not got the racistness in it, so that's a good thing, but that isn't really a kind of selling point on a film that it's not racist. It's just not funny, really. It really is. Seems like it doesn't even really try and be that funny this time. It completely wastes the actors in it. Zach Galifianakis he's cool. I like him. Ed Helms I love in The Office as Andy Bernard, but I just really don't like this film. Ken Jeong they've sort of overused now in the Hangover films. He's brilliant in Community and Role Models, but this film just feels like a film by the numbers. They're being paid loads now. They're trying to tick the boxes that were funny in the previous films and just doing it a lot worse, basically. So I'm hoping this is the last Hangover film. I think it might be. It's terrible. Yeah, that's it. Moving on then to my number 3. So I've done. I'm forgetting them now. What have I even said? Oh yeah, so I've done This Is 40. I've done Hangover 3, and now my 3rd worst film of the year is The Big Wedding. It's going to be difficult to talk about The Big Wedding because it's just such a bland film. It's got loads of good actors in it. It's got Robert De Niro in it, as most films this year seem to have done. It's got Topher Grace and what's her name from Annie Hall, Diane Keaton, Susan Sarandon. It's got it's a really strong cast. Well, that would have been a few years ago, certainly. But it's just such a bland film about a wedding that not much happens in. It's really obvious jokes. It's probably didn't raise a laugh the whole way through. And it's meant to be a comedy, so that isn't very good. So I won't waste any more time on that one. It's just really, really boring. I wouldn't recommend anyone watch it, even on DVD or on TV. Yeah, so my bottom 2 now, and it's hard between these 2 because these 2 are far and away my worst films of the year. I will start with number 2, which is Pain and Gain. So, Pain and Gain then, it has The Rock, it has Mark Wahlberg, Anthony Mackie, Rebel Wilson. It's terrible. It's a Michael Bay film, so it's not Transformers, so that's a good thing. There's no, well, there's a couple of explosions, but it's not a big robot film. But it's just awful. It's sort of misogynistic. It's not funny in any way. It keeps hammering home, this is a true story. This is based on real events. It really is, all this sort of stuff. And is it really though? It's just really not a good film. It's a bit depressingly bad, to be honest. I watched it because it was a kind of preview screening. I thought it looked pretty terrible from the trailer, but I like The Rock actually. He's a good actor, but yeah, no, this film's really, really terrible. I've seen it in some lists of like good films of the year. It's just come out on DVD, I think, last week, and some of the write-ups were good for it, and I don't really know why, to be honest, because it's just an awful, awful, awful film. But it has nothing on my number one worst film of the year, which is... Should I do another rundown? Probably not, I've just done one. My worst film of the year is Only God Forgives. Yeah, Only God Forgives is a really polarising film. The Guardian put it on their top 10 best films of the year, and I think it was Empire or Time put it on their worst films. But I don't think I've ever been as bored as I was in the cinema as when I watched Only God Forgives. Anyone who happened to pass them by, the lucky ones I will call them, it's Ryan Gosling and Nicholas, is it Winding or Winding Refn, the director and star of Drive, teaming up again. And anyone expecting Drive 2, which I wasn't, will be very, very disappointed, unless they're fans of really, really pretentious art house films. Yeah, it's just not good. I really just found it absolutely dull. It's so pretentious. It's beautiful at times. There's some amazing lighting, some amazing colours on the screen, and some amazing scenes. But the plot's almost non-existent. You kind of expect it to grab you by the end, almost gradually without realising it. But by the end, I was just so bored of it. What's her name? Kristen Scott Thomas says his mum is fairly good, but not given enough screen time. Gosling is largely kind of mute, do you say, or without dialogue for a lot of the film. And yeah, it's just a really, really awful, awful film. I don't know much more to say about it. I'm not a fan of films that think they're kind of cleverer than they are. And I also hate that if you slag off that sort of film, people think you're stupid, you just didn't get it. But there's a point. I mean, something like Tree of Life, which I also think is terrible. I think it's beautiful, but absolutely terrible film. People sort of think you're stupid if you say you hate it, but I really hated that, and I hate this probably equally as much, to be honest. Yeah, I just can keep saying how much I hate it over and over again. But no, it did remind me. I came out thinking, oh, it's sort of kind of like, is it Gaspar Noé, Enter the Void, all the beautiful colours, and almost like, if you're on hallucinogenic drugs or something, you probably get more out of it, to be honest. You'd enjoy it. But there's some interesting things in there, I will say, which isn't true of any of the other of my bottom five. And I would say I can kind of see why someone would like it, but do they really like it? I feel like they're kind of saying they like it to be kind of, clever, that sort of thing, but it's a really terrible film, and I love Ryan Gosling, and not even he could save it. The people in the film with us did sort of think they're going to see a Ryan Gosling film, and they were laughing at it and sort of chatting amongst themselves because they were so bored, and I don't blame them, to be honest. Yeah, so that's my bottom 5 films of the year. As I said, there's probably more terrible films out there that I've managed to avoid, luckily. But let me know what your bottom 5 were if you like, and stay posted, stay tuned for my top 5 films of the year, which will be coming soon. Thanks for watching.